And you're welcome back. The Joint Admissions, and Matriculation Board has commenced the rescheduling of the Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination for 379,997 candidates affected by technical issues. The process began on Thursday morning following a press briefing in Abuja by JAMB Registrar Professor Ishaq Oloyede. Oloyede acknowledged flaws in the recently concluded UTME, revealing that 206,610 candidates were affected across 65 centers in Lagos, while 173,387 candidates across 92 centers in the Owerri zone, covering 5 southeast states, also experienced disruptions. He confirmed that affected candidates would begin receiving text messages notifying them of their rescheduled exams from Thursday. Meanwhile, the National Association of Nigerian Students is demanding the immediate resignation of JAMB Registrar Professor Ishaq Oloyede following his admission of widespread errors in this year's Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination. In a statement issued on Thursday, NANS National Public Relations Officer Samson Adeyemi described the UTME errors as a damning indictment of institutional incompetency, calling for accountability at the highest level. The controversy comes after an emotional press briefing on Wednesday in Abuja, where JAMB Registrar broke down in tears, publicly apologizing for the mistakes and announcing that affected candidates would be given a chance to retake the exam. But NANS insists that the damage has already been done and urged the federal government to introduce urgent reforms to prevent a recurrence of such failures. And joining us now from Abuja for more on this is Public Policy Analyst Chukwudi Analo. Mr. Analo, many thanks for doing this with us. Very unfortunate situation there with Nigerian students. So how exactly is the JAMB Registrar's apology the resolution to this crisis?
Thank you very much for having me, and it's quite an unfortunate situation, and my heart goes out to students who are affected, their parents as well. And the apology, I must say, in the first regard is the first step, but it should not be the end point. It does not put end to the depth of the situation. It's important that they've opened up to transparency, but more transparency is actually needed. And beyond just because we need these institutions to be able to uphold a certain level of integrity. So it's important that in this case, particular of the institution need to at this point actually make significant step by first of all at least stepping aside and allowing a total private review of the entire process, and also to more likely bring back the integrity of this institution. But I think beyond the apologies, we should be seeing more resignation across board.
Well, that's a tall ask, if I would say, because I haven't seen any public officials, maybe in recollection, who has ever stepped down or resigned from a position due to incompetence. But what is your opinion is the right way to address the matter and prevent future occurrences? Because I think that's very important. If you're saying that an independent audit is important, do you think that we should go more in terms of the technical glitches that we've seen? I mean, technical glitches are one thing, but how are we sure if this was a sabotage or just the weakness of the technology JAMB is using its entirety?
So that's why there's a lot of questions on board, across board. If you've been following the news, everybody's actually questioning, and a lot of things come to mind in terms of why a particular region is mostly affected and questioned. So in terms to be able to uphold this integrity of this institution, to ensure that we forestall such from happening again, we need to see a proper open audit that brings back transparency to the entire process. We've had issues about the vendors being complicit, but the question is, who are these vendors and what was the verification process? What was the review process in terms of endorsing these vendors? So we want to see more transparency, more openness to the public. And if possible, we should be looking at an ombudsman being set up, a committee which is made up of most likely teachers from secondary schools. We need to see also look at maybe some parents from the PT Association, and if possible, the students themselves to be able to have a say in certain conversations. And we should be able to see how rigorously these processes are being reviewed after the institutions have come up to say, this is what we are doing, or we should have more of a neutral body who is mandated to do these reviews from time to time. That will bring some integrity back. But above it all, we should be seeing a new leadership to champion this next course of it, because it will be very, very hard to put back your trust on these people who have failed us this time.
I mean, at the risk of, what's the word I'm looking for, holding brief for JAMB, I must say that there's also a lot that has to be put into place when it comes to a computer-based testing in Nigeria, right? Lagos, Port Harcourt, and Abuja, and all the other metropolitan cities can somewhat say that the students can use computers. But what about the other parts of the country where it's far to reach, or they don't have, or they have to share one computer, or there's electricity issues? Those are not also put into this in this conversation. I think that's a conversation that needs to come to the fore as well. When we look at the entire structure of our educational system and the curricula itself, I mean, you could talk about accountability and transparency in the process, but there's also a lot that needs to be said about computer proficiency and using a computer-based test for this examination.
Yes, I completely agree with you that there needs to be a more robust conversation beyond the focus on JAMB. We need to talk about computer literacy across board. We need to talk about the availability of the centers. We've seen very ridiculous claims in terms of students of teenage age being asked to resume for an exam at about 6:30 a.m. It's quite questionable how we can torture students in this way. These are supposed to be the future of our country, and no regards in terms of how we treat these people. We must start showing them, because for them to be able to bring back love to our country, we must show them love. And it's very important that the conversations go across board in terms of how we conduct examinations going forward, in terms of our curriculum, in terms of a lot of concerns that have been raised. Because in this particular incident, when these concerns were being raised, we saw a lot of push aside from even JAMB itself. We saw even the Minister of Education is quite questionable in this situation, because he actually took a stand without actually delving further. And the most ridiculous part that is painful is when you realize that JAMB actually found this consign, but said nothing to the public, never opened up to say, oh, actually there was an issue with this, and this is what we are doing to be able to find out how deep this has gone, to be able to now create a remedy. If not, that people had to push further. So I think that there is a need for a more robust conversation, and most especially at the regional level, because various regions have various peculiarities in terms of the challenges they face with education and such examinations, and in terms of technology and all of it. So it's important that we expand this conversation, but most importantly, we should also make sure that regional factors are put on the stage to be able to factor in how we move forward. But overall, I think that this should be a learning point, that we should not be able to find ourselves in this situation again where we say glitches. It's very easy to just throw words around, but we must be able to move forward, and move forward in transparency, in rebuilding the integrity of the institution, and above all, ensure that there is a lot of voices that are being heard and carried along. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I must say thank you so much for taking out the time to join us, Mr. Analo. Just running us a bit of insight. I think another that needs to be looked at is also maybe days ahead, where we can do a mock test of JAMB. That used to happen back in the day, I think, for WAEC and NECO. I don't know about JAMB, but that needs to be introduced, where there's a mock-up test where the students can go in so they can find all those technical issues way before the D-Day. But once again, Ms. Analo, many thanks. Public Affairs Analyst joins us to give a bit of insight following JAMB, saying that about 397 more thousand students needs to come back to write their examination. Once again, thank you.